my sales were getting quite big. I think I'd done my first $100,000 month. Engaging an agency was definitely the right thing for my business. Like I was at that position where I needed to offload the digital marketing side of things, but also I was ready to scale. I feel like the future is going to be like a founder and then like bots. If you're not taking AI seriously and you're not doing anything about it, you probably won't have a business in 5 to 10 years. All right, so my name's Lexi. The brand is called Alexandra, which is actually my real name, which I never get called. We have quite a range now, actually, and it covers your relaxed casual vibe. So it can be the sports, sort of the sporty sports luxe styles. Mm-hmm. And then we also have much more other kind of elevated casual styles such as, dresses, blouses, blazers. But everything, our ethos is about being comfortable. It's all about comfort. And we don't want our customers to compromise style for comfort. So, we're trying to provide everything that you can just chuck on and go. You don't have to think too hard. It looks cool. And, most of our pants have elasticated waistbands. A lot of our fits and styles are really oversized and loose. So you can just wear them all day long and just not want to get changed.
Nice. Even though the brand is where it is today.
Yeah.
You didn't come from that world. You weren't like trained in fashion or went to design school or anything like that.
No, nothing. I knew nothing about fashion at all, except for I knew that I loved it. When I was younger, I would just spend all my money on clothes. And that's it. What
job were you doing before starting the brand?
So I was in marketing. Yep. I worked with Coles Group as a marketing manager. And I worked there for most of my 20s. And then I tried something else after that in finance, but it wasn't really me. So I pretty much did that job for a year and a half and saved all my pennies. And that's how I started Alexandra.
Completely outside of fashion.
Completely.
Like big Coles Group. For anyone that doesn't know that, Coles Group is essentially supermarket. Has Australia on lockdown as one of the biggest players. And then finance. Was there a moment where you thought to yourself, you know what, I'm going to start I'm going to start my own brand? And if so, what was that like?
I got to be honest, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I knew that I wanted to start a label. I thought that would be great. I didn't think much beyond that though. So I found there was something I knew I wanted to sell. So I started sort of working on my designs for that. I kind of just taught myself Shopify and popped up an Instagram page, but there wasn't a lot of strategy behind what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to start a label and then I would just see what happens.
What was, do you remember what you thought to yourself as to the reason behind wanting to start a label? Was it because it was a creativity thing, just like owning your own business?
Honestly, I think I just loved clothes. And wow. I probably thought it was really cool to have a label back then. I think I was just so obsessed with clothes and fashion that I felt like I really had to be doing something in that space. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what I love about talking to different types of founders. The origin story and that inciting moment is so dramatically different founder to founder. For some, I was just sick and tired of working for someone and I just wanted to work for myself. I didn't care what brand I started.
Right.
I just wanted to have my own business.
Yeah.
And then you've got, I just loved the space so much that I wanted to be involved in a very real kind of way, besides being an employee in a big company.
Yeah.
Then you've got me, for example, who back in the day just needed to find a way to make money because I was like settling down, thinking about getting married. Nat, when we first moved together, Nat already has a son, Finn. So it was do I keep my kind of day job where literally to make more money, someone at that level has to either leave or die.
Yeah.
For me to move up into that because it was a small company that I was working for, or do I start my own thing?
Exactly.
So it's always so fascinating to hear where the starting point was and then just being scrappy, like to start figuring it out yourself.
Yeah.
Like that's nuts.
Especially I started at 32. So, 31. No.
30s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's it's pretty late, especially when I had a decent income prior to that. So, it was definitely a risk. I went from making money to making no money.
Yeah, no kidding.
For quite a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the scary leap, right? I think it's, you see those founder interviews years later when they're big, and they almost sometimes make it sound like it was a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
But if you manage to dig deeper into the story, that jump is pretty scary, going from your super's getting paid, your salary's coming in,
absolutely.
like nothing's on the line, so to speak, as long as you keep doing your job well.
Right.
To fending for yourself, like out in the cold 100%.
Exactly. And also when I'd paid for a Bachelor of Business majoring marketing, I worked in marketing. And then I decided to throw all that away and start a business and throw all my whatever money I had at the time into this business that I had absolutely no experience in, and have no idea even how at all to run a fashion label. I couldn't draw, I couldn't sketch, I couldn't do anything. So, I mean, if there's a motivation to make something work, that's it.
And how many years ago was this?
Well, that was 7 years ago now.
Wow. What was year one like?
Year one?
Yeah.
I got to say, the label went okay quite quickly. Not great, not amazing, nothing like, some of these stories out there, but it was enough to give me validation that I was on the right track and people were liking what I was putting out there. So, year one, I would be excited if I got a few 5 sales a week, that kind of thing.
Right.
But it was tough because, I was doing everything myself, absolutely everything. I had to learn everything. I was teaching myself how to run ads. I was teaching myself how to build a website. I was my own model. I got my friend to whip up a logo. I had my other girlfriend make the swing tags. Like it was all, it was such a home job. Yeah. Oh my gosh. You could actually go back quite deep into my Instagram. And if you go really deep, 7 years deep, you will find some pretty bad pictures of me.
But it's so necessary though, right? Like I think the person who's thinking about starting out, typically what they're studying are the brands that have made it in the state that they already made it state. So they're looking at, whether it's the videos that they're shooting or the UGC that they're receiving or the influencers they're working with or the stills that they're shooting and going, oh my God, my brand, do I really have to afford that type of shoot, that quality to even make it? And really, like you said, if you scroll deep enough and the brand or the founder doesn't delete and clean up their feed, you'll get to see like how scrappy they were at the start. And I've got so much respect for that scrappiness because it's so funny. Earlier this week, we had the CMO of Original Grain, US brand, multi 8 figures, watches. And they're called Original Grain because a lot of the watches feature wood, so wood grain, from like whiskey barrels and stuff like that. And one of the it was like a little workshop thing, and one of the attendees asked Nate about budget allocation and how should you start when you're first starting. How should you think about that? And I love what he said, which was when you're first starting out, your money should really only go into 2 places: inventory and fueling ads.
Yeah.
So get out your phone, get your cousins, get your nephews, get your neighbors, and then just like create stuff that way. Because your money really wants to be funneling to those 2 things.
Yeah, I definitely did everything on the cheap, and that's exactly where my money went to.
And it was working out, like you were saying, first year, like it was okay enough to validate that you should keep going.
Exactly.
Were you, okay, this is a very interesting mindset question. Were you going in looking for reasons to keep going, or were you going in a bit more pragmatic and looking for reasons to not keep? Were you the realist or were you the optimist, do you think?
Optimist. Definitely. Nice. I absolutely loved every second of what I was doing. I just remember getting up at 6 a.m. and going to bed at 1 a.m. and just working. And I was completely obsessed. And to be honest, I have been ever since. I mean, obviously there are days where I was thinking, why am I bothering? But generally I would double down and go harder because it's that consistent effort over time that's going to get you where where I am today. And I just kept reminding myself that as well. It was Yeah.
How many products did you have during that first year? Like what caught the attention of the internet to then be able to get the good enough sales that you're talking about for year one?
So it was some luxury outerwear. That's what I started with. I actually, I found a sort of a niche in the market at the time, and I felt like my price point was there wasn't a lot of offering in that price point for these particular styles. And then it's funny because I'm from Melbourne and that's where the brand originated. So it was very wintry Melbourne-based type of product. I think I forgot that the rest of Australia isn't Melbourne.
Right.
Right. So, now I live in Queensland. I realized the need for natural fabric summer dresses. But back then it was extremely autumn winter focused. So I had all the outerwear, and then I started realizing in summer that wasn't selling. So I started moving towards some t-shirts, and then I started on some like pleated skirts, and I just was flopping about. I actually didn't really know what the brand stood for back then. I didn't know, I was just trying different things.
Sure, you're still discovering, right?
Still working it all out. And when you're so small and, not that many people have eyes on you, you can do that. You can afford to do that. So I was fortunate enough as well to be able to do very small quantities of what I was selling. And I think that's a key if you're starting out in a label, because, if you're trying to invest all this money into one collection that you need to sell like 80% of or 50% of to get to the next collection, like your business can pretty much die within the first 3 months. So yeah, that was definitely something that enabled me to very slowly grow my business in a way that was good for myself as well, and the fact that I didn't have any skills. So the business just grew very slowly as my knowledge also grew slowly.
Yeah, and I love that to hear you say waking up at 6 and wrapping up at 1 because you were so in love with the game. It's so obvious that you are. Like, it shows not only in the end product, but even in the times that we just nerd out about stuff and just jam. It's so apparent.
Yeah.
That's one. The other thing, which I think is super interesting that you brought up, which is the fact that when you are small, I love the mindset that you had, which is when you were small that way and there weren't that many eyeballs, you allowed yourself this space to discover, which I tend to notice that very few brands founders allow themselves to do that for some weird notion, as if they have to be locked in, like a big brand is locked into that type of stuff. Right. Do you see that too when talking about like noticing other brands? Definitely.
Absolutely. And, I still have the mindset of being small. So, I think we can get away with things, but I think, now we're at a point where we've got to be a bit more consistent. But I think that agility and the discovery of, working out who and what you are takes a really long time. You shouldn't rush it. So if you've, brands that have the opportunity to, they need to think more like that for sure.
What were some moments where, because you said we still think agile and we can get away with some stuff. What were some of were there any kind of like boo-boo moments?
Yeah, definitely. Like I might have designed something that's just pretty off-brand now. But I loved
so you're more locked into like an
aesthetic,
the guardrails. Right.
Yeah, or just shooting out an email that wasn't perfect, and but no, probably more the design side of things. I like to be a bit more experimental with the designs, but I do have to think about, come back to who our customer is. And now that we know, we have all this information.
Yes.
I can't be, I've got to be a bit more.
Yeah. And what is if it does go off, maybe like off center, if we call it that, left of field a little bit from what your customer base, fan base are accustomed to and love, what does the feedback loop look like? Is it just lower sales, or do you actually get emails and customer support tickets of like vocal feedback? What does that look like?
The feedback probably more comes from like our wholesale fashion agents and
got you.
Yeah, and the stockists, or numbers really.
Yes.
Yeah, which now because we're ordering quite large quantities of things that we can't really afford to have styles that just completely don't sell. So
100%,
yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing that you mentioned also in the first year with that whole discovery piece, what were you actively experimenting to eventually find a defined style? Was it more destination driven, or was it more, let's just keep experimenting and let it reveal to us driven?
Yeah, I think it was probably experimenting and see what people like, and the numbers will reveal themselves.
Right.
Yeah, because I did start with some dressier styles, and I thought that was I did think that was the style I was going to stick with. But then as soon as we started doing the t-shirts and the more sporty styles, that just started taking off, and there was just that feedback from the customers. You could tell that that's what they were after. That's what they were loving. They were loving the logo. They were loving the ALX. So yeah, it was through the sales that we obviously make the decisions, but I also really wanted to have the logo on our product, because I felt that, I can't compete with, Dacuba or Country Road, or, we've got to stand for something.
Yes.
And, there's got to be a reason someone's going to want to buy our plain white t-shirt over another brand. So I really wanted to experiment more with the logo, and it worked out. It's now our best sellers are usually the styles with the logos on them. So
I'm super curious, right? You were playing around and experimenting that first year, and it seems like that theme or that trait of experimentation is something that just like runs through you as a strength to have. Yeah. How do you, if you can break it down, and I know what I'm asking you is literally to break down like verbally to teach someone how to ride a bike, which is difficult, but how could you break down how you decided what to try next during that first year? Well, here's what I'm trying to say. It sounds like you had some intangible skill of sensing where the market is going, and then testing to see whether you can make it happen for you. And I know that people that are starting brands, or right now that are trying to grow and scale their brands, maybe to multiple collections or SKUs, a lot of them have that sense of, how do I get my finger on the pulse so that I can move into that next thing? How did you do that?
Back then?
And then and now, maybe we can just,
Well, back then, I'll tell you, because I have some pretty fashionable girlfriends, and I used to just invite them over and get them to try on all of my samples and give me feedback. I would sit there writing it all down. So there was that. And also just in general, I would always wear everything I designed out, and I would get instant feedback that way. Right. So I would often get comments on what I was wearing. So I would ask more. What other colors would you like to see it in?
Right.
But in terms of now, so my way of knowing in experimenting would be, I get a lot of our samples before I've even made an order. I will put them on our models in one of our photo shoots and get them shot. And if they show up well, that's it. I already know. I'll double down on those orders.
You've got the touch and feel now also. I
just know once I see it on someone else as well, how it's going to go. Right. So, and also I get the models' feedback. They're trying on brands' clothes nonstop, day after day. So I love getting their feedback too. And then, often it's just me still wearing all of our samples and getting feedback from friends and family.
I love that. I love that. It's nothing fancy whatsoever.
No, it's not complicated.
It's not this complicated. I follow these Reddits and these Twitter profiles and go on these news websites and triangulate. You're literally just getting real feedback, hearing the tone of voice, the way that their faces are curious and asking you stuff. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we follow trend reports and everything too, so obviously to keep our finger on the pulse. But, we're not about being the trendiest, and we're not about always going after the latest trends. Because for us, we want longevity in what we're selling to our customers, and trends are so fleeting. you know?
Yes,
So
flash in the pan, right?
really are. And very quickly you can look unfashionable if you're still wearing that trendy outfit from 2 years ago. So, you know, and we are mindful of landfill. So yeah, we try and so therefore, you know, I am looking at trends, but I'm also mainly just designing things that I like to wear and I'm comfortable in. And then I just check that everyone else is and that's it.
Totally, for sure. Do you still have pics of when you had your girlfriends over trying on stuff? Did you take pics and videos and stuff like that?
I've somewhere.
Wow, that'd be such a throwback.
I have like 70,000 photos in my phone, so I'd have to go back pretty deep, but
they exist. Like, wow, that's cool. Yeah. Wow, that could be like a 10 or like 20 year anniversary of the brand type of a thing.
Yeah,
just like collage. That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Now, maybe not as social and as like vibrant as getting your friends to try on clothes for you to experiment. What was experimenting with teaching yourself like Facebook ads like?
Oh my gosh, it was painful. That was, I mean, yeah, it was, I think it was less complicated back then. Like this is what, 4 years ago now, 5, 7, well, I think I started about after my first
2017, 18.
Yeah.
Right. Upload an ad pretty much back then.
Pretty much, yeah. It was upload an ad, a link, and it wasn't a lot to it. I mean, I also wasn't, it wasn't complicated too because I was doing the basics of it.
Sure.
But yeah, but it was good. I mean, the thing with Facebook though is back then, you know, you were getting more bang for your buck. So I was seeing a good return for a little bit of spend, which was quite motivating. But you know, it's hard to keep on top of it, especially because I was releasing new products, trying to do that regularly. So to keep on top of updating ads and all that, it became pretty draining pretty quickly.
Totally. And the way that you like, did you always, because of that was it because of the marketing background that you knew for me to push this brand even further, I got to figure this like whole performance advertising, social media advertising thing out? Or was it just like, this is what people in e-commerce do, Facebook ads, I better jump in there as well?
Yeah, I think it was more of that. Because I didn't have much to do with the digital marketing side of things in my previous role in marketing. But, you know, I was seeing other brands showing up on ads and I was like, well, can't be that hard. And yeah, that was it.
Yeah, wow. And then, so fast forward, when did you, like, how did we end up working together?
Sorry. Yeah, actually, my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, he mentioned that he saw this really cool digital marketing agency. He saw like one of your, it was kind of like an ad maybe, and yeah, he said they look really, really good. I should contact them. Okay, so my personality is, okay, cool, I'll do that and I'll do that right that minute and I will get it all done within that week. So literally the next day I'd spoken to him again and I was like, yeah, so cool, I've spoken to Right Hook, I've got a meeting tomorrow and I think I'll go ahead with them. And that was it.
So you weren't actively looking to farm off the work to get it off your hands?
So no, I definitely had within my business was at a point where my sales were getting quite big. I think I'd done my first $100,000 month. I had one other person working for me who was my wholesale coordinator and customer service girl. And, you know, things were getting busy and they were getting real. So that's when I felt like I was at that position where I needed to offload the digital marketing side of things, but also I was ready to scale, basically. Yeah, I was ready to get serious about growing the business. I had enough validation by that point. I was 3 years in. I had some good stockists. I had customers were loving what we were putting out, and I just knew at that stage, okay, like I've got something good here. Let's share it with the world.
Yeah, for sure. Do you think that prior to that, I'm ready to scale, I know I have product market fit, I'm seeing the numbers justify themselves, I'm ready, it makes sense to take it seriously. Do you think prior to that, it makes sense to bring on an agency, or do you think it's more beneficial to get the hands-on stuff, be the person to touch and feel and be able to actually run the marketing, run the ads, run that? What do you think?
I mean, for me, I had enough on my plate with the design side of things, and that just wasn't my specialty. Like I probably could have spent a really long time trying to teach myself to be an expert. I don't know if I would have got there, but it wasn't probably the best use of my time. And, like I was already in a position where I had so much else I didn't know that I needed to learn to run the business. So engaging an agency was definitely the right thing for my business. There was no way I could have focused on that and managed that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Because what I always say is, and I'm a firm believer of this, so much of it is like timing also. What I mean is I notice a lot of brand founders are sometimes a little too eager to bring on the agency or the external help. They've been fed by the internet that the agency, the performance marketer who knows what they're doing, is the accelerant, which it really is, but only if the fire's already burning. You've 100%. Got the scale and stuff like that there. Yeah, I think prior to that, it might just like snuff out the fire instead.
Definitely. Yeah. You've got to have all your systems in place as well. I had a decent amount of stock. I had a warehouse who was able to fulfill all the orders. I had one staff, but, in a position to be able to hire more. So yeah, it's definitely about timing.
Was it easy or difficult to let go of the reins?
It was exciting in a way.
Wow. Okay.
Definitely
interesting.
exciting.
Did not expect that answer.
Yeah. Cause I guess I was hopeful of what you were capable of. There was obviously there was the stress as well, because I was relying on these figures every month. And what if I don't achieve them? What if you run my business into the ground? And I remember the first month being told how much I needed to spend, which was quite a lot more than what I was used to. But and that was like, an experimental kind of learning phase as well. But I was told that we were going to at least break even on that first month and all that. So that was very stressful for me. But you guys, I was in good hands.
What made you say yes, even though it was stressful? I'm always so curious about that because it's such a real number. It's real money getting put into the account. What made you say yes to? And go like, you know what? I don't know you guys. We literally just met. Sure, we did some preliminary strategic work together and some audits and stuff like that. But let's go.
I think it's probably more just my personality, to be honest.
Right.
Just going, screw it, let's try it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Like I might lose a little bit of money, but I can afford to, and or it could be amazing, which it has been.
And it's so. I think this brings up for me, it's funny, but I understand how on the other side it might be misunderstood. The monthly meta spend mindset and frame of mind, because here's what I mean by it's funny. Most people hear that number and think, oh my God, on the first day of that month, the credit card just goes bing and all the budget goes. But really what we're doing is monitoring performance, allocating the spend on a daily, weekly kind of basis, monitoring that spend against Shopify revenue coming back in anyhow. And then the spend kind of goes paced across the month against the sales that comes back. But because it's a presented as a lump sum number, it sounds like 10 times scarier and more.
Freaks you out.
For sure. Very, very freaky in that type of way. Because it's almost like I put the money in here and then black box all the way until end of month report. And then I see how it goes, as if it's some kind of 30-day long slot machine.
I know.
Right? So I think and maybe this is like PSA to agencies and like our industry out there, I think we need to do a better job of explaining that part. Because now that you understand, you've been through the cycle for like enough times now, it really is just like, allocate budget and then run creative, run ads, run the tests, see how it goes, tweak, and then go accordingly. Yeah. Does that, is that perspective now a stark change to that original kind of like Holy crap, that was stressful and scary.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, definitely. But you guys also ran me through the potential for the spend. So it's, that I think the excitement of that and looking at these potential numbers that's probably what got me over the line too, actually. I was like, I think if we can do that, we'll spend whatever.
That's super interesting. How going completely left field here, and if we zoom out across like Aussie kind of fashion industry and e-commerce industry, where do you think the landscape is now in terms of just Aussie fashion in general? Like, we were just chatting just before we hit record, and you were saying this whole Black season, or like just the yearly spending behaviors of consumers over the past few years has been like a bit all over the shop.
Crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
And in the past year and even last year, just the amount of big household Aussie fashion brands that have gone into receivership and just blows my mind. Yep. It really, really does. And then countering that with all of these direct-to-consumer e-commerce brands that aren't big household names seeming to like flourish and do their own thing over here. Yeah. What's your take on where everything is at?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy right now. But a lot of the brands that are, you get these notifications that they've just gone into administration. It's not often a major surprise either. Like I can't say I'm ever like, oh my God, I'm sort of like, well, you haven't really kept up with the times.
Yes.
I think also, if I look back in the day when I was much younger, and because I lived in Melbourne and there was Chapel Street, and if you weren't a store on Chapel Street, you weren't cool. Who are you?
Right.
And if I was going to go buy clothes, it would have to be on Chapel Street. It would have to be from a brand that had a store there. And, nowadays it doesn't matter a lot of my friends, there's obviously all the big name brands out there, but nobody cares if they're wearing something that nobody's ever heard of. In fact, it's way cooler. No one else is going to be seen in it. And it's, oh, where did you get that from? Oh my God, it's this really cute little brand. It's from such and such. And
it feels like a special find.
Yeah. And so, there's just so much of that competition out there nowadays. And also, everyone's dressing down too. Everyone's all about, casual wear and comfort. So, there are a lot of brands that aren't picking up on that trend as well.
Do you think maybe it's because they're too locked in? Right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. But there's also a lot of brands that are doing complete rebrands, or they're changing their designs, their styles, their aesthetics, their everything, just because, I guess they're the ones that are nervous that they're about to go under. So they're like, what can we do? But there's quite a few brands out there doing that at the moment.
Yeah. Where do you think it's going into if you had to look into the future, like 3 years from now, 5 years from now, and we talked about this last time we hung out, like AI is coming. That's kind of taking over a lot of the visual aesthetic type stuff. It's just getting easier and easier to spin up a brand, online brand, at least like an online store, at least it's easier to spin up a brand. Where do you think it's going? Any hot takes?
God, I feel like the future is going to be like a founder and then like bots.
Right.
And that's it.
Right. Yeah.
AI is taking over every job under the sun. But I guess someone has to steer the ship. So it's for me, I can't say I'm doing a lot with AI yet. I'm doing a little bit, but it's definitely going to be a focus to start learning more about that, because if I don't, I won't have a brand in 5 years' time.
Right.
And you've got to be. It's not going to, obviously it's going to take over a lot of jobs, but you still, if you're the owner of the business and you're at the forefront of AI, I think you're not going to have a problem. But if you're competing, if you're not taking AI seriously and you're not doing anything about it, you probably won't have a business in 5 to 10 years, because every other business will be competing with AI in their back pocket.
Yeah. I saw this one tweet today. And it really made me chuckle. The tweet goes like this: everyone wants to make AI art. No one wants to consume it.
Oh, right.
And I was like, oh,
That's so funny.
It's so wild, right? Because all the conversations around like how to make the AI stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, it's everyone shitting all over like, oh, this looks so fake and like this, right? So it's such a fascinating time right now. And then the other quote that is flung around, which is we're currently using the worst ever version of AI today. That's the part that blows my mind also. But it's so true though, I think what you said, which is the jobs moving forward, the AI enabled jobs moving forward really comes down to steering the ship, the way that you put it. In other words, quality of input as opposed to quality of output. Whereas now a lot of the work that we do and the jobs that are out there are about quality of output.
Yeah.
So, I'm sitting down, I'm taking in raw footage, I'm editing this clip, for example. The quality of my output is what I'm assessed on, and that's how I'm good at my job. With AI, it's more if I can prompt the machine in the right type of way, my inputs to give it instructions and to guide it along the way and steer that ship, then I can have maybe 5 to 10x more output as variations to send to my boss to say, hey, which of these 10 are the ones that we can ship and publish? It's such a fascinating, different world. I see it a lot in editing. Are you seeing it anywhere in like design, in apparel design or anything like that? The only space I see it in apparel design is the laziest way that internet marketers and people that want to make internet money latch onto, which is spin up an Etsy store, print on demand, tell Midjourney or GPT to come up with 10,000 different images and then just slap it on here with like a sales screen or whatever and then ship it. Do you think it's moved into like actual apparel stuff, not just like print on demand stuff yet?
I don't know, but I would love it if it has, because for me, the idea of saying, hey, here's our customer. This is all our sales. This is what they're buying. And these are the sizes, by the way. And they can come
give us some ideas.
They can come back and say, hey, here, I think you should do this blouse in this color and this fabric. And here's your size run. There you go. And then create a whole complimentary range. App idea right there. Seriously.
I think there might be a customer there for us already.
I mean,
wow.
That would be amazing. It would be so powerful. Yeah.
And that would in fact, it's so interesting. I think some people might hear that and go, well, wouldn't that commoditize the entire market because it's all bots versus bots? But me hearing that, it's interesting because I actually think that makes personalization even more relevant and more powerful, because there is one kind of data aggregation. You're feeding it. This is my customer. This is what they care about. Yeah. This is the data around what they're opening up their wallets to vote for and care about. And here are some thoughts, some, anecdotal qualitative type data from me as well. Yep. Let's steer this thing,
which then means reviews.
Right. Which then means that pocket of customer now almost has like a cyborg level care put into it, which then opens up all these other pockets of customers to receive that level of care, and then products to reward them and incentivize them to keep coming back also.
Definitely. Yeah. It would be
that's
amazing.
Nuts. Yeah. We tinker around a lot with it on the kind of ad creative side. I think it's still a few steps too early. Right. So if you're prompting for some type of like a human looking generated model, you'll still get the wonky fingers.
Yeah. Yes.
You still can't place fabric and apparel on a certain pose just yet. I really do think it's around the corner though. I've seen a few videos that are just very, very impressive. However, funnily enough, now what seems to be working is once everyone is zigging that way, the market seems to want to zag. So it's the lo-fi, I want to hear from the founder on their phone. Yeah. They have I just woke up hair and tell me your story, which is quite delightful in a certain way, I think, because in a way, what it allows for founders to do is the market is actually putting their hand up and saying, we would love to hear from you, not just you don't have to guess as to whether they want to hear from founders or not. They're telling us, yes, they want to hear from us. I think that's super cool. And then secondarily to that also, it gives whichever founder, you can't fake authenticity.
No.
So if you genuinely want to experiment, you genuinely are in love with fashion, and you just can't help yourself, but like your brain just fires up when it sees other images or other brands, and that going on camera gives that type of founder such an edge over someone who might have like, some type of special supply relationships in China, or like a 3PL thing, or like a local deal, stuff like that. Like, where do you think that whole founder story thing is going?
Yeah, I think people still want connections with brands. And I think these days everybody else on Instagram is sharing so much about themselves that it's almost an expectation now to know, who's in the office, what does everyone look like? Everyone wants to peek behind the curtain, and I think because everyone's sharing so much on Instagram, it's like, well, yeah, it's expected now that brands are unveiling and showing what's going on the inside.
It's a bit of that voyeurism too, right? Like the whole, I want to get the insider peek.
Yeah, I want the inside scoop. That's right.
Yeah, spill the tea, please. That type of a deal.
Yeah, and I've started to do a lot more of that stuff. I mean,
how are you feeling about it?
Yeah, it takes some getting used to, I got to say. I don't want to watch or listen to anything I've ever,
right,
done.
Right. Yeah. Apparently that's Meryl Streep also. Okay. So you're not alone. Okay, apparently good. Meryl Streep never watches her own movies.
Yeah. Yeah, I would prefer not to. We're also critical of ourselves. But yeah, I'm trying to do more of that. And to be honest, I haven't had I haven't had time before. I'm trying to now make it a priority, and it is important. And even just little things that have motivated me more. We've had some customers just come to our store and just say, is Lexi here? We really want to meet her. We've been following the brand for a while. And
isn't that cool? Yeah, that's kind of cool.
It is really cool.
Yeah,
it just makes you realize that, it is time to share more about the brand and me. And also I think I've always thought the brand was quite, it has been small, but I haven't, I've always like, but we're not that professional. We're not professional enough. I don't want to share behind the scenes because people are going to know we're not that professional. And, but I don't think people care either that much. They just want to see what's going on.
Right.
But now obviously things are a lot more professional, more staff, we've got, the setup, we've got our studio, we've got, we've got office with all our staff in it. So things are, there's a lot more to share now as well, where I felt like earlier days there wasn't as much to share.
Right.
But, I just, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. But there also is that whole Japanese concept of wabi-sabi also, right? Which is perfection in the imperfect. Like the rough edges are the thing that people are drawn towards. And if it was all super sleek and everyone was in a smock in a type of factory and everything was like that, that almost would become too cold and
definitely
like sanitary almost.
Yep.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. That's super cool that I'm glad that you're jumping in. I completely empathize. I think if you are, it seems to come very naturally to Gen Z. Yeah. If the first digit of your age starts to become a 3 or 4, it just gets less and less feeling natural. Definitely. It tends to be a thing. I think it's the same as like hangovers. Mm-hmm. Oh gosh, don't talk to me about that. The starting number of your age determines like almost how many days you need to get over a night of drinking. I think it's definitely like the expectation. Like for me, I am a very relaxed. I'm a casual person. I don't, like this is kind of what I wear to work. I always felt like showing up as a founder, you'd have to be more polished and professional. Sure, and I think now that I'm seeing so many founders just being relaxed and cool and casual and not worrying too much about that sort of professional side. That's probably making me feel more comfortable too. Nice. Yeah. And that's where I think that's what Gen Z understands also. That's where the charm is. Yeah. Right? Like the fact that they are flaws and all the blemishes, like you're really getting to see all of it. And I think proof in the pudding, funnily enough, from our generation, the Kardashians, and the fact that it literally, they've built billion-dollar businesses and empires off of letting a camera crew into their home for years and years and years and years and years with really not much happening.
No. It's like making breakfast.
Yeah, totally. And then bickering with one another about what to have for lunch.
I know.
And then not knowing how to cut a cucumber, like, you know, just.
But that's what we're interested in.
That's fascinating. Yeah. It runs so counter to, I think, any kind of 80s kid or 90s kid, the way that we got brought up, which is unless the giant media companies have blessed you and said you are worthy of being in front of camera, you're not worthy of being in front of camera.
Yeah.
Whereas the counterculture, the Gen Zs are almost like, screw these guys. I'm just going to do my own thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to count to 1 million on YouTube live and then, you know, become Mr. Beast.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It still blows my mind. I fear myself turning into a boomer.
Oh, I know.
What's next? What's on the horizon for Alexandra Australia, do you think?
Our plans at the moment are things like starting a loyalty program. We've got some really loyal customers that we probably need to nurture more.
Nice, love that.
So, I mean, it takes a bit of work. We're only at the very beginning stages of even planning for that, and so sometime next year, I'm hoping we'll have that up and going. But I want it to be a meaningful program. You know, there are so many that just you kind of sign up for, and you're like, did you just want my email address?
It's just a by the way.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
Look, I'd love to open some more stores. I love customers coming in and being able to touch and feel our products. I am really proud of our quality. So, you know, giving them that sense of trust in the brand, and you know, finding new customers too through the brand awareness of stores. Also, just entering some new product categories. Like we're in a position now where we need to expand more. We're doing a good job in the categories that we are in at the moment, but I feel like there is many more to explore. You know, we just started in denim this year, and it has gone off. So, you know, I had never thought to do denim before. And, you know, so we've just got to keep experimenting and see what our customers are loving.
Nice. Love that. That experimentation thing.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do.
Totally. It's gonna see the brand so long and so far.
Yeah.
For sure. This has been awesome.